Okay, so you guys are live.
Hello everyone. My name's Alan, one of the VSource leaders. Today joining us is Lukas with VetClaims AI. I first met Lukas years ago when he was exclusive and doing some cool tech for helping the blind people. And since then, he's gone on to do AI advising and now using AI for vets in their claims. One of the best uses of AI out there. So without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself and take it from there.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Alan. Appreciate you. So hello to everybody watching, and thank you for once again having me, Alan, and VSource team. There's a lot of things I can talk about today, and there's a long story I'm kind of going to take you on. It's one of the rare opportunities I get to actually tell this story. Where this gets really interesting, right, is right now I stand in front of you, and I'm the CEO of a 150-person team. 98% of those people are veterans. It's pretty impressive, and I'm pretty proud of that. But it's also roughly an $80 million company. So we're an AI company. We're almost all veterans. We're an $80 million company, and we've grown this in just a matter of, well, a year and a half. But what I'm going to talk to you about is not just flexing on AI or building a company or raising venture capital. It's more so the journey of entrepreneurship and the transition of being a veteran and doing these things, right? So for me, this all starts at the ripe old age of 17 years old. At 17, I joined the Army because home was not the best place. I think that's a story that's shared by most enlisted folks, most people in the military in general, right? Came up with a different kind of upbringing. Some of you wanted to get the hell out of there. I was one of those people. So I joined at 17. I volunteered for airborne school while I was in basic. And they said, scouts can't be airborne. Supposed to be stuck on tanks. But the 82nd did have a little scout squadron that was stood up. So by the time I was, well, about to turn 18, I had already gone through basic at Fort Knox. I'd gone through airborne school, Fort Benning. Then finally I got to Fort Bragg, which is a pretty intimidating and formidable place to be. I think it's probably pretty accurate to call that America's Sparta, right? The conditions there weren't nice. It's not an easy place to cut your teeth or come into maturity, but no less, there we were. I'll skip through a lot of that, but at the age of 19, I was wounded in Afghanistan. Not a good time, obviously, right? And that ended my time in service. I got out of the military before I was 21 years old. So I think I was 20 and a half, September of 2013, I got out. And I found myself with no plan, no money, no resources, no support system. And most of all, I didn't even know the VA was a thing. I knew it existed because my grandma went there and my grandpa had gone there. But I didn't understand what that was, how it benefited me. Even as a Purple Heart recipient, no one did anything to reach out and say, hey, Luke, you got your benefits, you're taken care of, you're doing anything. So I found myself living with everything I owned in a 2004 Ford Mustang. Now, mind you, it was a very fast car, but a good apartment it did not make. And, you know, the heat worked, I guess. That was decent for Nebraska, but it wasn't a very comfortable place, especially not when duffel bags and everything that I had was stacked in there. The thing that changed all of that was when I found the local VSO, right? I found, funny enough, this guy named John Brown. He's no longer with us, sadly. But in my small town in Nebraska, he was a guy that my grandpa had actually recruited into the Army during Vietnam. That was how we came to know each other. That was how we came to talk. And he helped me get my first rating, right? He took the things I had that I knew was wrong with me, wrote them down, and I ended up getting my rating. And that little 30% rating enabled me to have the stability to where I could get a double-wide trailer. I know we're talking luxury now. Double-wide trailer was infested with rats. It was a complete mess. It was horrible. But no less, it was better than a Ford Mustang and a food pantry. So with this disability rating, I started working jobs. I was a cable guy for $7 an hour. I was a diesel delivery technician for like $12 an hour. I worked in the oil field doing QA on pipes. That paid like $14 an hour. And finally, one day, something just completely changed. This company I was working at, they had a Christmas bonus, right? And I tell this story because it's oftentimes the reasons we have that lead us to becoming who we are, right? I did not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even a year ago, think I'm going to be the CEO of an AI company. At no point in my life is that something I said to myself. And in most entrepreneurs that are successful, it's not like they sit there and say, this is exactly how it's going to work. And if they do, it's probably wrong anyway. But there was a point where I knew I needed more. Right, there was a point where I knew my life was meant for me. And at this Christmas party, or Christmas bonus party, if you will, for the company, they'd given us a pretty generous bonus. They gave everybody a waiver for a free turkey from Walmart and a $50 gift card. And that was pretty meaningful for most of us, right? The next day in the break room, this guy who worked there for 40 years, he's like, man, I am stoked. Because of that Christmas bonus, I'm going to be able to get my kid that Xbox for Christmas. And that's when it hit me that this was not a career path or a life path that I wanted to go down. When I was 40 years old, I did not want to be worried about a matter of $100, or even $1,000, or even $10,000. If this is what I'm going to give my life to, if this is the career that this company has for me, that's not what I want to do. There's obviously a misalignment here. And that moment right there was the big initiative that drove me to go to college, use my GI Bill, which I think is something very critical for all veterans to do, whether it's for traditional schooling or now there's all these crazy trade schools you can use your GI Bill on as well. That's what I did. And the next piece of this, the big lesson that I took from it, and I hope I can share with you, is that it's not what you want to do. So many people have this high school counselor just BS idea of what do I want to do in life, and I got to dig in, I've got to commit, and it just couldn't be further from the truth. It's so wrong. It's the dumbest question I've ever heard asked. It's not what you want to do. It's what you want to do next. I went to school and I started with criminal justice and then juvenile justice. And then I realized that I was actually good at school. I'd almost failed out of high school, mainly because I was just a badass kid. But in college, I was getting straight A's. I was on the president's list every single semester. And yes, you can Google that. It's still up there. I'm proud of it. But I made the president's list. And so I was like, well, shoot, why don't I go into the highest grossing career field that a college can put me? And at the time, this was 2014-ish, 2015. It was 2015. That was petroleum engineering. I transferred to the University of Oklahoma from a small Midwestern community college. Transferred to the University of Oklahoma, started pursuing petroleum engineering. And man, I realized then and there I am not good at chemistry. And thank God the oil and gas industry crashed right then. All the people that had that degree were now unemployed. Man, if you wanted a lifted Dodge Ram 3500 with the biggest wheels, the most badass exhaust, you could have got one for about 10 G's. Because all those guys who had these amazing trucks, worked in the oil field, they were now unemployed. And that was sad. Right? I say that laughing, but of course that's huge economic downturn. So what did that tell me? Man, I probably shouldn't stake my entire life on something that can be fluctuated so you politicians. For someone who is a Purple Heart recipient, maybe I should learn that lesson earlier. But there's that. So, once again, I find myself changing my major, and I end up settling on nursing. Mainly because I want to be surrounded by women. Not going to say that didn't work out. My wife is giving me quite the look right now. Needless to say, nursing was an interesting choice, and I did enjoy it. What I found in nursing that I really loved was providing calm and care for people, right? Getting to help someone else, getting to make money while in service of others. And that is ultimately something that would dictate almost all my choices from then on now. So in nursing school, right, I go through this whole process. I work really hard, pass the NCLEX, do the thing. Oh man, I'm working as a nurse less than 6 months, and I get a job offer to go be a PMC, right? Private military contractor in South America, doing tactical medicine instruction. So essentially teaching their combat medics how to operate at a higher echelon of care that they can provide. See, in America and global war on terror, we had this thing called the golden hour. No matter where you were hit, if it wasn't the heart of the head, if we got you to a hospital in an hour, you'd probably live. Most of you remember that. And if you don't, I guess count yourself lucky for not being in GWAT. But in Colombia, they don't have the golden hour. They got like the golden half day, right? You can't land a helicopter. You got to figure out how to exfil that casualty out. They got to do a lot more work to stabilize, prepare, and hold these service members together while they're waiting for an extract to an actual medical center, which is also typically further away. I did this for about a year and a half before I realized getting shot at for money. And working overseas is fun, but that money is useless if you die, right? So this is also not the path for me. So I figured I'm going to go back to America, and I'm going to go to nurse practitioner because I don't want to work on the floor. I don't want to do these things, right? I don't want the stress of being a floor nurse anymore. I make it about a month into my first semester of nurse practitioner school, and I realized that in general, maybe I just don't want to be around fluorescent lights. Maybe I just don't want to keep reopening these old wounds of combat in Afghanistan every time I take care of a kid on the floor. maybe I don't want to have to address the things that I'm still going through and processing internally as part of my because that sucks. Call that maturity. I think at that point, I don't know that I was emotionally mature enough to really call it what it was. But in retrospect, I can say that's a big part of it. So, and you see me here now, and there's a couple more twists and turns before we get to where I am now and what we do now. But I hope that that's helpful in understanding it's not what you want to do, it's what you want to do next. So going from that, right, what am I going to do? I don't want to be a nurse anymore. Well, lucky for me, I met this girl in California, and she moved to Austin. And that was that. I was like, well, I guess I should move to Austin too. I don't have anything else. But I had no way of getting to Austin. All that money was gone. Being a student didn't exactly pay well. And I still didn't have my full disability rating from being a Purple Heart recipient, right? The VA didn't think that TBI, due to being exploded, was, a thing, I guess. So didn't know how to fight that battle on my own yet, even being a nurse, even knowing medical etiology, even knowing the background, right? So how do I do this? Well, I didn't. So I prayed. I prayed and I prayed. And the thing that came to me was the next big lesson in my story that I think applies to every single person watching this in general. See if you can catch the lesson at the end, and maybe I'll ask. I don't know if we can interact with the live stream, but I prayed. And I said, well, I'm not going to go to school anymore, so I might as well go help something. So I went to the local animal shelter. And these people thought I was insane because I showed up. and what I did was I said, hey, I want to volunteer. I want to walk your dogs. I said, okay, well, how many hours a day you want to walk dogs for? I said, how many hours you open? And they're like 7? I don't know. I said, okay, well, how many dogs do you have? I said, 30. And I was doing the math. If I spend, 15 minutes walking each, I was like, well, shit, I guess I'll be here 7 hours a day. I'm like, okay, how many hours a week? Or how many days a week? How many days you open? 7? Okay, guess I'll be here 7 days a week. And these people thought I was full of it. They're like, this dude's not going to show up. I don't know what he's on. I don't know what he's doing. But no shit, that's what I did. I showed up to that animal shelter every day. And this wasn't in pursuit of anything bigger. There was no reward to be had. I was so mentally and emotionally lost that all I knew was giving myself to something else. But I walked those dogs, every single one of them. There was dogs there that were on death row. They got in fights with their kids. I spent extra time with them. I helped dogs get adopted. I fell in love with dogs. I wanted to take them all home. I currently have a pack of 4 dogs, and that's kind of hit capacity, right? But it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I get choked up thinking about it because there was so much love to give every single day, right? It was powerful. And literally the 30-day mark, this is where it gets really interesting. God speaks in interesting ways. Regardless of what you believe, that's the truth. And day 30, I was on this Facebook group, Drinking Bros Austin, right? And I posted a month ago. I post in there every week. Anybody need a room? Dear God, I just need to get to Austin. I can afford this much a month. I got one little dog with me. And day 30, that night, I'm sitting in bed after spending my day at the shelter. Someone messages me. Hey, man, my name's Cody. I'm a Marine vet. I got a house in Buda, and I need someone to split a room with me. It's like, shit, say less. When can I move in? And he's like, next week. So lo and behold, next Monday, I go to the animal shelter. I'm like, hey, this is my last 2 days. I finish up strong, give the dogs a kiss goodbye, put everything I own into my truck, and I'm prepped to go the next day. But something else weird happens. And this is completely irrelevant to the story, but it's one of my favorite stories. So my truck, my F-150, is loaded. Everything I own is in it. It's parked outside the apartment. I'm planning to leave at 2 a.m. On that same Drinking Bros Austin Facebook group, which used to be a super prevalent thing, I don't know if it still is, there's a post for this hound, and he's on death row. He's cute. He's a little emaciated, right? You can tell he's not well. And it says Genesee County. I'm like, I don't know anything about Texas. I've never been to Texas before. I've never lived there before. But Genesee County is in Michigan, I'm pretty sure. So I comment like in Michigan? And the lady replies. She says, yeah, this dog's here in Michigan. I was like, shoot. If that's not a sign. I mean, I don't know what is. I'll go see it tomorrow. So I delay taking off for a few days. I load half my stuff back in the apartment. I go see this dog. And they're like, well, he's been here since he was 12 months old. He's now a year and a half almost. He doesn't know how to go to the bathroom outside of being in the fetal position, and he's terrified of anything that's new. I'm like, well, can I see him? Like, we can try. And they had to get the stick with the collar and bring him into the visitation room, and he just hid behind the couch. Now that dog is currently 5 years old, and his name is Whiskey. And he lives with me, right? But this dog was point proof of to me, it was the full circle. When you were stuck, I'll give you the lesson for free. I was supposed to ask. When you're stuck in life, God, go help somebody else. Go help somebody else, because the biggest reward will come from that. Point blank, period, simple, right? That dog takes care of me and my wife to this day. He's a bit crazy. I had a dog with him when he was younger. Can't help it. But luckily, he's simmered down over time. He's one of the most loving dogs you ever meet. So it doesn't really add to the story, but it's good to know. Point is, help somebody when you feel stuck. When it comes to entrepreneurship, it works the same way, right? So I finally got to Austin, and what happened? Well, I wasn't going to be a nurse anymore, and I wasn't going to be a nurse practitioner because I just dropped out of school. So I was curious. I was figuring it out, right? What do I do next? And when I got there, this was like the gold rush. I can't imagine San Francisco in the end of the 1800s, but I felt like it was the same way for tech. If you could write a single line of code and be even marginally valuable in Austin, dear God, you can make 80K. And that's more money than I make. Shoot. So I was like, I guess I better learn to code. And so I did. I spent a year teaching myself how to code, worked odd jobs in between. And, I finally ended up getting a job at this insurance company. This is where things start to get really interesting and take their final kind of career twist, me getting into tech, right? So I'm at this insurance company, and I'm there for probably 6 or 7 months, and they get sued for an accessibility issue on their website. The CEO and CTO come in, which they never did, and they said, boys, we're screwed. We're getting sued for upwards of $20 million for this accessibility lawsuit. Do any of you know anything about accessibility engineering? And at that point, accessibility it still is a back, right? No one cares, right? That's the truth. It's not taught in school. It's not coding camps. It's not even concerned about, right? If you ask an engineer to this day, most of them have no clue how to engineer something to have an accessible experience for the user. And none of us did. But that night at the gym, I'm on the treadmill where I do some of my best thinking. Not enough recently, but that was a joke. But the truth is, I had this thought. I was like, my mom married this guy who was blind. And I'm 26, 27 at that point. I'm out of the house. It's not like me having not having drinks. I met him like once. But I say, whatever. I call him and I say, hey, if I got you paid to sit there and tell me where something is broken, while I try to iterate on it and fix it, would you be able to do that? And he says, yeah, I get paid. I don't care. So I pitched that the next day to the CEO and CTO, which, mind you, I'm nerve-wracked. I don't know if any of you have been inside of a tech company, but typically the lowly engineer is not going into the C-suite and just hanging out with people. But that day I had. Needless to say, the CEO and CTO had me on the next flight home to Omaha the very next day. From there, it was crazy, right? I sat down and literally that's what happened. I put this screen up in front of my blind stepdad, had him navigate through it. Where it didn't make sense, I'd iterate bit by bit, head to toe. We fixed the whole thing. In 7 working days, we mitigated this lawsuit, saving the company upwards of $20 million, plus reputational costs, plus legal fees, you name it. This is a pretty big name insurance company. You'd all know it if I said it. I got a raise, a promotion, and I got an office. It's pretty cool for an engineer to get an office. Usually you're at desks like this with 20 of you jammed together. So this is where it gets really wild, and where a lesson from earlier in my story kind of gets compounded on, right? Serving others and getting paid to do so. My dream. This is where it gets built up. My stepdad turns to me and he's downtrodden and depressed. I'm stoked. I just got a raise in office. We saved somebody millions of dollars. And what is there not to be hyped about, right? But he turns to me and he says, for the first time in my life, I feel intellectually valued, and it sucks because it's never going to happen again. And I'm like, why? You're blind, not dumb. What do you mean that's never going to happen? He explains to me, I currently work at Skillcraft. Now, if any of you have been in the military, if you ever used toilet paper while you were in the military, you probably remember a green little logo that says Outlook, Nebraska. Where my mind set that work. Now, here's the crazy thing. Here's where we're going to spread some crazy information. The way that those firms work is egregious. The way the federal government does business with it is egregious. What happens is the blind American gets Social Security Disability Income, SSDI, right? Now, you can earn SSDI and also make up to a certain amount of money. That certain amount of money is damn near nothing, right? It is not enough to pay your rent. It's not enough to pay your groceries. So what do? These firms take in the blind Americans or otherwise disabled Americans, not just blind folks, and they have them work. They have them work for less than minimum wage. They call it subsidized wages with the justification that if they pay them more, they will lose their SSDI. And that is how the government gets affordable toilet paper for the United States military, federal prison system, you name it, right? So, therefore, my stepdad had worked in the same plant for 20 years. Give him promotions, sure. In fact, he was a manager. But they could not give him a raise. That was all he would ever get to do. This didn't sit right with me. To me, I joined the army to kill terrorists. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't go for school for VA benefits. I didn't join the military for some like feel-good reason. I watched 9/11 happen. I watched the invasion of Iraq. I knew my grandpa was in 3 of the different islands. I joined to do this country's bidding. And just as I would fight terrorists overseas, I will not tolerate it. And this just boiled in me to the point where finally I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own thing. Everybody called me crazy. You're going to build a company for blind people? They don't have any money. Well, I know, that's the problem. So who do you sell to? Well, you sell to the government. So this started my first company, which I call Inclusive. Now here's where it gets really interesting. I spent a year and a half pitching venture capitalists. I had to pitch 185 VCs to get my first yes. If you're listening to this and if you're into entrepreneurship, you're like, oh God, 185, what'd you do? Right? Well, it's not just that I was bad. I mean, I was bad, don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody when we start pitching companies is pretty horrible. But this was also the most unsexy company you could ever try to sell to somebody. Hey, I'm gonna wait for the government to give me money. Right? But it's gonna help a lot of people. So ultimately, when it came to getting these investors, right, to finally getting the yes, right, I had 185 no's. And if you haven't pitched a company before, you have to understand, for perspective, it's not 185 no's. It's 185, you're stupid, your idea is stupid, what are you doing? Or even worse, you're too early, right? That was my favorite one. Investors love to use that as a cop-out. You're too early. And if an investor ever says that to you, be like, I appreciate that, but give me meaningful feedback. It'll take 10 more minutes of your day, but it'll help me get better as an entrepreneur. Call them out on their stuff. They have a duty to be good if they're in the ecosystem. That being said, VCs might be mad at me right now for saying that, but the big thing for me was that I had to cultivate enough faith in me as an operator, as an entrepreneur, that it overrode how stupid the business idea was, for better or worse, and I did that, right? And I had some amazing. You're a veteran, Rice Veteran Business Battle. I won 5K. I won 20K there, winning their business show. Bunker Labs. I had free office space at WeWork. They don't do that anymore, but they still have some cool stuff, I think, right? Penn Fed. I went through their program. I went through pretty much everything the veteran ecosystem has to offer, and I'm also happy to talk about that stuff for any questions you may have. But by going through that, I built faith in myself, right? So a funny, crazy thing happened, right? People always say it's one yes. But for me, it really was. It was a wild moment and a wild turn of fate. So 185 investors, I'm just beat to death. I'm out of money, credit card. All I got paid is the mortgage and some utilities. I get a call. Hey, we're going to go. I got my first yes. Got my 100K check, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was on a Tuesday, right? That Wednesday, that next day, I was set to meet with a guy who I was going to ask to be my co-founder to come join me in building something. as my friend, who is going to be the co-founder, walks in, I get a call from the managing director of Techstars. Techstars is one of the most selective tech accelerators out there. 12,000 companies apply, 10 get in. There's some crazy stat about it being more selective than Stanford, Harvard, and Dartmouth combined, or something like that. But the point is, it's a big deal. It's a lot of validation. I get a call from that Techstars MD. Luke, you're the first person we wanted to call. We want you to join this cohort. That right there instantly was another $120,000. So in 2 days, I had 12 months of no, 12 months of doubt, 12 months of no, 12 months of hardship, 12 months of being broke, 12 months of damn food stamps. And in 2 days, people have now agreed this idea that I had made, this it wasn't even a full product yet. This idea I had made was now at least $1 million. In fact, according to the valuation, it's going to be $3 million. Within 4 months, I had closed that pre-seed round at $850,000. I had a team. I was in Techstars. We were doing the thing. I had press. I had press releases. I had mainstream media. I had all of it. We flash forward 3 years. We'll skip through a lot of that. Actually, need some water really quick. Flash forward 2 years, right? Inclusion's now a roughly 30-person company. We've secured over $30 million in contracts with state agencies across the country, right? The most impressive part of this was how quickly we sold into these state agencies, getting into state procurement orders, right? It's a very difficult thing to do, especially with an RFP process that's broken and dated from like the 1900s. And I don't mean like the 90s, I mean like the 20s. The RFP process is a mess. We circumvented that, got through, and did the thing. We were fixing to be a $100 million company going off. We'd help blind people find jobs in the modern workforce. Right? And get this, with less human intervention, these people could do it from the comfort of their own home. It was powerful. It was life-changing for blind Americans. Sadly, that year, the Biden administration cut budgets for the RSA, Rehab Services Administration. We were no longer. That was that. My company died. 3 years of what I built down the drain. It was crushing. It was one of the most painful things I've dealt with. But I have to tell you, the biggest award, the best trophy, came at the end. I told my team fair in advance. I said, hey, this isn't looking good. I can choose to raise more money. I can take more venture capital. But to do that, I have to look these investors in the eye and say, I believe this is going to make it. And I no longer do. I cannot count on the government to do the right thing. I cannot count on the government to not just protect themselves in the face of helping actual Americans get what their agency is supposed to be doing done. I can no longer. This isn't looking good. That sucked. So they knew it was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. 2 weeks before Christmas, I had to lay off my entire team. Mind you, these aren't 20-year-old engineers. Most of that team were female former government employees and their families. They're in their mid-30s or older. They were established. They were kids. 2 weeks before Christmas, I had to lose a lot of money. The biggest trophy and the biggest award, the thing that means the most to me in my life, more than any amount of money, any car, anything I've ever done, is a simple text. I got a text message 2 days after that. There's a gift card to a barbecue joint in Austin. It was signed by every member of that company. They said, thank you for creating the best place I've ever gotten. That, to me, secured my spot in what I would be doing for the rest of my life. And that's building shit. It's building companies. It's building teams. It's building environments and building cultures. That is what I love to do. Point blank, period. That was the biggest award. To this day, even with everything I've done now. Mind you, while building that company, I've been given an award by the Texas Business Hall of Fame for innovative leadership. And I started there. Texas Business Hall of Fame for innovative leadership. I got a 3-page spread in Texas CEO magazine. I don't know if you know about Texas. There's a lot of badass CEOs here. I think we're like #1 in the nation for millionaires, right? innovation lives here. So for that, it was an honor. Oh man, there was more, whatever you call it, accolades, right? To list. Those are some big ones. And that gift card meant the most. So what happened next? I'm downtrodden, I'm defeated, I'm beaten, I'm recoiling, right? Literally in the mental equivalent of the fetal position, wondering what I do next in my life. Because I know what I love. But the man that everybody cheered for is no longer CEO Luke, just Luke, just this guy. Reduced to pure human rubble. So I felt. And funny enough, a few months into that, I got a call from one of our agencies. And they asked me to be an advisor for digital innovation. They liked what I'd done in the past. They're impressed how I built the team. The company was blind American. They're impressed with how I led. And so I got to be a digital transformation advisor for the CS Open Source Directorate. And that was a cool job, let me tell you. If they ever give you a call, maybe answer it. It was pretty cool. They can answer it. It was a time. And while I'm working there, I get to experience this really interesting team. I mean, we're talking a team of people that are everything from like the biggest nerd you ever met and imagined to a guy who's probably been shot at in more countries. Right? Real tier operators, clandestine operators. One of those guys to talking over lunch one day, and this guy's probably been shot in more countries, shot or wounded in more countries than I've been. He's been through it, right? And he's now on the administrative side advising. So I talk to him and I'm like, we're talking about something. It comes up talking about his VA rating. And I'm like, okay, you got to have like 100% too. I mean, you've been left, right, up, down. Like, you know, your knees would sound worse than mine. What's going on? He's like, I think I got like 30%. I was like, that's insane. That's wild. That is great. And I go, look, I'm going to help. I'm going to send him to like a show. I'm going to send him something. And I go to look. And this, of course, varies on locality. BSO in the audience. No shout. No claim to you. But we had in some localities you can't get a hold of BSO for months, right? Or if you can, you get 30 minutes with them next month or the month after. And 30 minutes. It goes further. And that might work if you know exactly what you're doing, what you're claiming, where you're doing. But in his case, there was a lot more to it, right? And everything wasn't on the DD214 clean and disclosed. So how do we help this guy? And I go look at the for-profit options, right? Okay, 2025, commercial entities in this space have to evolve, right? There has to be technology going on. There has to be something. There's not. It's the same thing that was there when I got out. You can give a 30% of your back pay for doing an hour's worth of work. You can give a company 5x the increase, 6x the increase for doing less than an hour's worth of work and shipping you off to a doctor the VA may or may not agree with. You can go to your VSO if you know what you're doing, if you know what you want to claim. But there is a big gap between that and also, like, frame it this way. A lot of people look at veterans, and when you talk about it as a segment, they don't think about the luxury segment. I'm a veteran. I like BMW. I don't know. I like luxury shit, right? I'm sure you're veterans, you like nice things. Like, lots of veterans like nice things. It's not a limiting factor. Being a veteran is not synonymous with poverty. At least it damn sure shouldn't be, right? So why is there not a white glove service for this? Why is no one going to the comfort of your home and saying, let me help you? Let me run the game for you. Let me get you good. Let me take care of you, right? Why is there not that offering? I don't know. It's beyond me, right? So that being said, I realized that my 6-year battle with the VA to get the rating I deserve, and I'm a pretty smart dude, and I had a lot of time. I was going to college. If that was my case, and that's this guy's case, still in 2025, 2024, I guess at that point, we should fix this. So that's what I did. I went and I built a computer system, right? Sounds fancy. What we did is we trained an LLM to read off the past points of medical records. Then we started feeding it, right? Base housing reports, air quality reports, water quality reports, anything and everything. Mold was identified at Camp Red Cloud. Ooh, guess what? We got that. Everything that could be tied or linked to your service, right? Exposures, disabilities, left, right, up, down, everything in between. And that's what we did. But that alone doesn't make it, right? You also have to provide service. You have to be able to go in depth. It's one of the primary things in my belief that's missing within the veteran system, right? And the lack of investment the states have done into their own programs, right? And the VA's lack of investment in the meaningful technology for this is the fact that no one is actually going to understand who the veteran is, right? Yeah, sure, I can get 20 minutes with you. I can even get an hour with you. But if I don't look at where you've been and dig into what probably happened, right? Most veterans are too tough for their own damn good. They're going to say, yeah, well, that's fine. You know, the guys, my eardrum, my medics, they're going to say stuff like that. They're not a doctor. And they don't know if they've got TBI, right? They're also going to say things like, my back hurts. And they're going to want to claim things. And this is getting a bit nerdy in the ratings and so forth. They're going to say their back hurts. And little do they know, when they go to a CMP exam, that practitioner is only going to look at the range of motion. They're not going to take into consideration IPS, right? They're not going to order imaging to see if there's another issue or understand how big the flare-ups are. There's many, many gaps. And those are just like some of the highest level ones starting out, right? So what we built is a program where people go through, they engage with one of our advisors, and essentially they talk head to toe. What's going on? What can be service connected? What does your service consist of? What injuries do you have? So on and so forth. Current ratings, are they accurate, right? And in one foul swoop, that's the aim, in one foul swoop, be able to get the rating that they actually deserve instead of dealing with a 6-year back and forth process, right? That is what we do here at VetClaims AI. Now, I know that sounds real confident, crazy, but here's the thing. We've been here for over a year. We've unlocked over $200 million in lifetime benefits for veterans. We now help over 3,000 veterans a month. We've created over 150 veteran jobs in just 1 year. We're growing at average 30% month over month, sometimes 50. Really depends on how much we push it. My goal is to eradicate claim sharks and build a technology system that can be utilized and leveraged not only by DSOs, but hopefully as a direct interface to the VA itself, right? But the reason I built this is my final lesson. When you're going to build something, don't count on the government to do the right thing. Go read on the like, genuinely, when you're going to build something, prove the demand, prove the use case, right? And things will force adoption, right? You can go to that government agency and say, look, this thing works, it's efficient, do the thing, or they can choose not to. But either way, we already built it. So with that, that's the story of Lukas Simianer from a high level. I think that's the most I've ever told my story in one sitting, but hope it was entertaining. And do we have any questions?
All right, so I have 90% disability. That last 10% is pretty hard. Like, how do I tackle that?
Oh man, I mean, every veteran's different, right? Every veteran's going to have different claims. But when it comes from going to 90 to 100, there's a question of, is everything you currently have rated correctly, right? Is that at the right level? If not, you need to review. If you don't know, you need to review the schedule of ratings or have a call. You can have a free call with our team, and we'll talk to you about it. But that's a hard one for every veteran. It's going to be a bit different.
Okay. All right. How about CMP exams? Like, do you help with that, or what should I expect?
Yes. So we are unique in the industry in the fact that we do one-on-one CMP exam preparation. So you're not going to meet with a group and have to talk about what's going on with you in front of other people, because who wants to do that? You're going to have a formerly enlisted veteran who's also highly trained meet with you one-on-one to talk about your specific disabilities, and then go through what the DBQ can look like. The DBQ being the questionnaire that the examiner reads. So essentially, and this is critical for a few reasons, so it's a great question. Most veterans don't understand what that examiner is going to be asking. The downfall is the examiners oftentimes don't ask their questions. And if they don't, that's a proper exam, and you can call the VA and say, hey, the CMP examiner fudged this, I want another one. That way you're not waiting 6 months to find out that something's wrong. So yes, we do help with that on a one-on-one basis. It's part of every veteran's process with us.
Thank you. Okay, another question. I'm gonna ask two questions because they're pretty similar. If the VA is treating you for a condition, doesn't that automatically mean I get a disability rating? And also, how do I prove my current disability is service related? So they're kind of the same questions.
Yeah. So the answer is no. VBA, Veteran Benefits Association, and VHA do not talk. They can talk, right? The benefits guys can get records from the health guys. But in general, getting seen by your doctor for something, the doctor, there's no reporting mechanism for them to tell the benefits guys. Now, how you go and prove that your disability or ongoing condition is service connected, that's where it gets interesting, and that's where VetClaims AI really makes the difference, right? For us, we can take into effect the medical etiology, right? Leveraging all those peer-reviewed reports gives you the power to say, is sleep apnea connected to PTSD? Well, here's the study that says yes. So it depends on each situation. There's various ways to go about doing it. You can do medical etiology, buddy letters and buddy statements, or just also written. Just a written statement in support of the claim oftentimes can be sufficient, because what veterans oftentimes forget is their MOS alone or their job can be indicative of a disability. Like we have a lot of people, for example, will say, oh, you know, my knees are messed up. Well, there's no service records for your knees. Dude, I was a tanker. I'm jumping off an M1A1 Abrams. That's 7.5 foot tall, 6.5 foot tall, 7 times a day. You think my knee's not messed up? Crazy work. Right? Your MOS alone can be indicative to get the rating you deserve. And so there's a lot of ways to cross that bridge.
Great, thank you. Okay, 2 more questions that kind of the same. Okay, my supplemental claim got denied. That was one question. How do I fight that? And then another question is, how do appeals to HLR work, higher level reviews, or how do I get my appeals in front of a judge?
Oh man. Okay, so the supplemental claim one, you have to read the decision letter and you have to understand why. Every decision letter the VA gives you is a hint. It's telling you you're missing this piece of time, right? So that's step 1 for the supplemental claim question. What I'm going to say next might be divisive. When it comes to HLRs or like trying to get in front of a judge, my honest answer is why. Why do it, right? You could win a clear and unmistakable error claim. You could prove the VA is wrong, but truth be told, you're better off just doing a supplemental claim. The Supreme Court ruling that happened earlier this year states that the VA no longer has to review cases de novo when they go to HLR or when they go to VBA. What does that mean? It means that the VA no longer looks at the claim as a whole. They're only going to look, and they're not looking at the merits. They're only going to look and see if the VA made a clear and unmistakable error, which the probability of that's not very high.
Yeah, I mean, even if you do get in front of HLR or the judge, that can take upward to like 2 to 5 years.
That is another thing that people don't consider is you can look this up. How many federal judges there are, right? Or how many judges there are in the VBA. And then you can look up how many claims there are. You can do the math. Even if they could squeeze 4 a day, you're probably talking 3 to 5 years. Now, the VA is moving faster than they ever have in their history, I believe, right now. But still, that doesn't affect the judge part.
I mean, at the end of the day, you just cannot provide a claim without documentation, without evidence. Correct?
Unless, I mean, being a purple heart, you can't just go and submit a claim.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I have a question for
Yes, ma'am.
So how many women go through your program?
Actually, a lot. So one of the cool things, and I forgot to mention this, is unfortunately in the military, more females, and males too, but MST is a very real thing for sexual trauma. One of the things that we did early on is we realized that we were getting a disproportionate amount of female veterans coming through. Ash here actually helped stand up an MST-specific team so that women can be off the camera, on a phone, they can choose if they want to meet with a man or a woman, because that can be a really hard thing to talk about, right? Especially with someone who's a stranger. And so we do our best to accommodate that. We don't market it because it's a tough thing to talk about, but
I would like to help you back here.
the word has kind of spread on that because it's something we realize is a very big.
And just not women, men as well, MST.
Oh,
Yes.
a ton of it. When someone raises that flag, we instantly kind of funnel it differently. Like, hey, who do you want to talk to? You don't ever have to turn your camera on. In fact, you can go on your phone. You know, we'll run this in a way that's
I just want to say thank you for sharing your story of overcoming persistence and service and dogs. Yeah, everyone loves stories of dogs. It was a great story, man. I was captivated the whole time. We really appreciate you coming down, and VSource looks forward to working with you in the future to be of service to the community as well.
I'm super stoked. Yeah, however I can help. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.